Hello, Reformed mythologist Nate Morgan-Locke here with a video about Inside Out 2. The sequel to Pixar's 2015 release, Inside Out, has just smashed global box office records. Directed by Kelsey Mann and starring Amy Poehler and Maya Hawke, it looks set to be one of the strongest performing Pixar films for the last decade. Essentially, it's a film about what it means to be human. In this version of humanity is led by the emotions. But are we led by our emotions? And did they miss anything that might be having a major impact on the emotional stability of teenage girls in the 21st century? No mention of the impact of mobile phones on the mental health of 13-year-olds? Seriously? Nothing. Okay. Now, it's a solid movie. It's relatable, funny, and the bit in the vault with the cartoon character and the guy from the video game showed that Pixar was watching when Sony made the Spider-Verse. There are so many ways this film could have gone dramatically wrong, and it didn't, and I'm very thankful for that. But the challenge with Inside Out 2, from a Reformed mythologist point of view, is its anthropology. That's understanding the human race. It ultimately comes up with something quite depressing, and I think that's because Riley doesn't understand her life as part of a larger story. Her problems need to be dealt with by her. There is only the struggle through the stages. Her parents have nothing substantial to offer her, only a concern for her well-being and flourishing. They're genuinely concerned for their little monkey, but lack the ability to guide her through the puberty crisis. Her friends too fail to offer her any wisdom because heck, they're just working this adolescence thing out for themselves. And her hockey coach. Eesh, this lady does not score highly on emotional intelligence or pastoral care. The two major points in the film take place during two hockey timeouts. Riley is punished for her foul play, and it's into the sin bin that Riley must go and think about what she's done and reflect. In the second of these, during the hockey summer camp, joy has been exiled to the back of her mind and anxiety is in full command of headquarters. The trouble for Riley is that she has no outside information within which to reframe her understanding of herself. Ultimately, it's a bleak vision of adolescence and the human problem. There's just you and yourself, your emotions and your sense of self. You're on your own, kid. You always have been. The whole in the film is that while it opens up the very important idea that our imaginations can be used to project dreams and nightmares, the imagination is also a place where we can bring to mind the truths of the past and the present. There have been events in the past which we can rely on to give us stability in the present and hope for the future. More on that later. So what makes the difference for Riley? What lifts her out of her anxiety-driven hyperventilation? At the turning point in the film, what events take place? What decisions are made to solve the problem? Essentially, Joy, having made it back to headquarters, manages to wrestle back control of Riley's beliefs, which have been replaced by anxiety's plot. Interestingly, there isn't a thing that happens when Riley is in timeout. There is a shaft of sunlight that comes through a window, but this is the closest we get to transcendence in the Inside Out universe. Story-wise, there's only the internal battle. She has a panic attack on the outside and then comes out of it because of internal psychological activity. But the external world matters. We aren't just our consciousness and our emotions. The external world is where things happen. They happen to us. And we are changed by them. The hockey game matters. The words we say to each other matter. The fouls matter. They aren't just content for the emotions to consume and manage. Now, of course, Pixar needed to make this film as a film, and it would have been awful if it had been a sermon dressed up in a story. But here on The Reformed Mythologist, we think of all stories as carrying meaning and messaging. It's unavoidable, and especially when your characters have such on-the-nose names and explain what's happening all the time. This really is Pixar's Pilgrim's Progress. Anyway, if you were wondering about a Christian response to panic attacks, aside from the usual try to control your breathing, physiological stuff, let me share with you a few verses from a book of the Bible called Philippians. It's all about joy. Essentially, the Apostle Paul is in prison posting an epistle to persecuted people in Philippi. That's the context. And the content is it's all about joy in Christ in the face of suffering. Anyway, there's a few verses in the 4th chapter that many Christians have found so helpful that they've learned it by heart. So I want to share that with you now. This is what Paul says: "Rejoice in the Lord always. I will say it again, rejoice. Let your gentleness be evident to all. The Lord is near. Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus." So there is the anxiety remedy: prayer and thankfulness. Draw near to God. And here's the part about the imagination. What should you think about? Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. Whatever you have learned or received or heard from me or seen in me, put it into practice, and the God of peace will be with you. So genuinely, that is my prayer for you. Whether you're going through the puberty crisis, or you're trying to parent an adolescent, or you're just a regular old human being with ordinary human emotions and all that, that's my prayer. Now please remember that media consumption is optional. You are under no obligation to watch Pixar sequels or films about the emotional lives of 13-year-old girl hockey players. I'm Reformed mythologist Nate Morgan Locke. I'm glad you were here.